back. WNST, Jasper Baltimore and Baltimore Positive. I don't have the Chiron on the screen anymore on YouTube, but I have the hats, and I have the dark ice cream, and I have Chicken Palooza, and of course our friends at Sporticulture selling lots of stuff. Luke, they're coming out with a new Magma lamp for the season. The Magma here is actually going, and now you can see the Magma. I love that. The Magma is going to be black, and the glow is going to be purple. So he explained it to me that we're going to have a new one. So I'll have court on next week about that. Luke Jones is here, and it is it's football season, right? It's baseball season, but it's also football season. It's basketball season. Hell, in Canada, they think it's hockey season.
Right.
And they're not even letting us in. I guess this was really, really thoughtful of Roger Goodell to not allow Canada into the NFL, to make it the National Football League, because they wouldn't let us play there anyway, right?
Exactly. I mean, you have the Toronto Blue Jays trying to figure things out. So, yeah, the NFL, just keep it simple, play in the United States and try to figure it out. But we think players will start reporting this week. We think we're getting closer to the start of training camp. Certainly how that's going to look is very much up for debate, as we saw a tweet storm on Sunday morning into the afternoon of players making it clear, saying, hey, we want to play, but NFL, what are we doing here? Some of the recommendations with the protocol and the acclimation period with putting on pads, delaying that, getting used to social distancing, all those different things. The league apparently doesn't want to follow all those recommendations, at least according to the players. So I said to you a couple months ago,
they want to treat it like these bars that have been getting COVID. Yeah, we'll play by Larry's rules, but then when the door shuts, there's no virus. Come on, we're strong people here. We're alpha. I haven't gotten it. You haven't gotten it. Nobody's going to get it. It's frightening, right? And trust is a hell of a thing, right? Like, now we really get down to the players saying, are you guys going to run this thing clean? And do you really care? And what are you going to do when we're dirty? And how many dirty tests is it going to take to kill a season? And what are you paying us? And how are we being paid? And I can only imagine that now we're at the same place baseball was 8 weeks ago, which was, do we trust you to do this the right way? And I don't think there's a whole lot of trust. I think we're going to learn that.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was saying to you over and over, before we just crush baseball and say, why are they the one sport that can't figure this out? I did say, let's wait and see what happens with the NFL. I mean, we're talking about the safety part. We haven't even gotten into projections that the salary cap could take a $70 million hit for next year. Well, that's going to impact players and team roster construction to a dramatic degree. And that's assuming we even pull off a season with reduced capacity or empty stadium games. So there are a lot of moving parts to this. I think, to your point, the trust, they worked out a CBA in March, and that's great, and there won't be any labor wars for the next decade, and that's well and good. But when you are talking about a pandemic, and we've seen this in other career fields, we're seeing this with the debate with education right now, for example, there's a lot of trust involved for every party that's involved. And what we're seeing with the players compared to the owners in the league, I'm not shocked by this. I'm not saying that it's encouraging necessarily or that I'm being flippant about it, but I'm not shocked by this because there's a lot at work here when you're talking about safety and health, obviously. Then you get into the financial realities of what they're trying to do here. I've said all along, I think it can be done, but that doesn't mean I don't have reservations, doubts, and part of that is trying to get on the same page to begin with. Baseball's now 3 weeks into starting back up, and hearing a lot of players talk. By and large, I think it's been mostly positive and acceptable as far as protocols and how they're taking care of players and how they're encouraging distancing. But when you're talking about the NFL and just the sheer roster size alone, let alone trying to figure out what locker rooms look like, what meetings look like, what practices look like, what the weight room looks like. There's so much to consider there. And I think if this can work, if they are going to be successful in pulling this off, it really does come down to everyone acknowledging this isn't going to look how it normally looks. Forget about fans in the stands and things of that nature, just how they prepare, how they meet, how they engage. And I think a lot of it goes far beyond the games and the practices themselves. I think just the spacing on these guys meet a lot. They talk a lot. They strategize a lot. I mean, there is so much to it that even you and I who cover this, we're aware of it, but we don't see it, let alone fans. So there's just so much to manage on that side of it. And I think for this to work, everyone has to buy in to say, this isn't going to look exactly how it does under normal circumstances. And we have to accept that if this is going to be pulled off in any kind of a successful way.
So what is it going to look like, right? I think it's a question for everybody. We've seen baseball, and I talked to you about that and said, it is a television product now, and how does it look on television? You know what I mean? And for football, we love football as a television product. I mean, I have no problem I have disbelief in both of them for different reasons, right? Like, I think the football thing of breathing on top of each other and living on top of each other and working together, and the general sloppiness of young people in what I've seen here over the last 3 months, that the young people have been told they're okay. I just think this is a recipe for disaster. I think the football thing is really, really going to be problematic, much more so than trying to sneak 60 baseball games in and losing a player here or a pitcher there or 3. There are things about football. It's synchronized swimming, right? They have to be in the pool. There's no way they're going to be able to do this and Skype back and forth. It looks great. They can watch film, they can share screen, they can do all of that. They can do this classroom setting in regard to learning football, but football is a team. It's the ultimate team sport, Luke Jones. I'm telling you, it's the ultimate team sport. You're going to find that out. And they shower together, and they locker together, and they talk together, and they commiserate together. And we're around them a very little, but I've been around football a lot. There's no way to do this successfully without 6 feet. And it's not a 6-foot sport. But it's $1 billion sport. It's a multi-billion-dollar sport. So they're going to try because, they're all led by Republicans, and we got to get it back on, and we got to get the sport back. And they're all led by television. They're all led by money. How American football get together. I'm not buying this, Luke. I'm not buying 18 weeks. I'm not buying getting on airplanes. I'm not buying bringing 14,000 fans. I'm just not buying that they're going to be able to successfully pull this off. I think the virus is going to make the rules, and the virus is going to win. And how we get from here to the Hindenburg, you know what I mean? From here to wherever it gets to teams can't playing, quarterbacks getting sick, coaches getting sick, wives of family and children allegedly going back to school in the South. I would bet that the Falcons and the Buccaneers and the Dolphins and the Texans and the Cowboys and the Cardinals are going to get COVID before the Packers do, just as an example. So I think there are greater risks in different municipalities. I think as we get up now into August and we know where this virus is going, that we have not as a society respected this virus the right way, that the NFL is just the latest into the pool to say, there's a lot of money at stake here, okay? This is about America. We got to get America back to work, America back on the field, America back to school. People are dying everywhere. And the NFL will be no exception, although they think that they will be. I just don't think this is going to go well. I just don't think this is a good, grown-up, adult, human decision by what the NFL is trying to do. That's my opinion.
I mean, I'll hear that. I agree with elements of that. I think if you test every day, which is what players want as opposed to every other day, I think there's a way to thread the needle, so to speak. I think, when I saw
not with this many human beings for me. There's too many human beings moving in too many directions with too many wives and too many children and too many airports over too long a period of time with a pandemic raging for me to think that this is not a mistake. And I'll keep going back to this, and I'm going to go back to this all week long, and my listeners are going to get worn out on it. The minute Rudy Gobert popped back in March, we all did a whoa, right? Everybody, whoa, 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 whoa. Now we're just looking at that and just giving it the old middle finger and saying, well, that was 6 months ago. We figured so much out since that. We haven't figured anything out. Matter of fact, what I figured out is that people aren't going to listen. They're not going to follow the rules. Earl Thomas is going to go find his girlfriend whenever he wants to, and that's going to happen over X amount of cases, X amount of times, over X amount of months. I just don't think this is a good idea for football. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off with the integrity with which they wish their shield to be. And I go back to Rudy Gobert and say, everybody stop then. Now it's different because, people are suffering in money and the president and the election and summer and we're all bored and we all got to get back to work and all that. It's the same disease it was in March, except it's 100 times worse now because it's everywhere. So I think if we use the thought of where we were then and what we've learned since then and how many masks I've gone through and Purell I've gone through to keep my wife safe, I don't think this is good, Luke. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think this is good.
And that's your opinion, and I agree with certain elements of that. Other elements I'm not quite as pessimistic about necessarily. But if you are going to pull it off, that's why the players were so vocal on Sunday on social media talking about the need to have testing every day, because that's how you screen. That's how you prevent 12 players from the team having to, to test positive and suddenly you're dipping into your entire practice squad just to field a roster. I understand that there are challenges to this. And I've said all along, I'm not going to sit here and brazenly say that, yeah, they're going to pull it off. I have no idea. I'm not that smart. Okay. I think one thing that we've had problems with in talking about this virus in general is many people trying to act like they're experts on it, and they're not, because even the experts have learned and changed.
The experts would tell them not to play. The experts would say, money aside, your helmet, your fame, your stadia, how many people are counting on you to get the Falcons back on the field in Atlanta?
Let's be clear. The players want to play too. Let's not just make it all about the owners. The players want to play too, and financially speaking, they have.
But the owners sanction it. The owners sanction it. You know what I mean? There's no radio show today if I don't do radio here because I own the place. Sure. So the fact that it's here, that's not.
But the players want to play, though. I mean, if they don't want to play, that's fine. I respect Nick Markakis opted out in Major League Baseball. I respect that.
And you saw the Freddie Freeman piece too. So
but he's also back on the field now. So I mean, look, there are risks to this. There's no question. I'm not going to sit here and say
it's plague. It's a plague. I mean, we've heard about it forever. We call it a pandemic. Pandemic is like this word that we all freak out. No, plague's what it is. It's a pathogen, and you can't see it. And, last week you're open at the Purple Moose Bar in Ocean City. This week you're dead. That's the way it works for everybody. And it's worked that way for 6 months all over the world. And the NFL thinks because it's red, white, and blue and it's American, we're going to put face shields up. I just know how close these players are to each other and how cultish it is inside that environment that winning. But winning means coming together, and it means being on the same page, and it means all of that. And I just don't think it's safe. I don't think it's safe. And if I were a player, I would feel that way. If my son were a player, I would feel that way. I like John Harbaugh a lot. I don't think it's safe for him. And I think, politics gets very, very involved in this. Sure. And that's where this is. The people who wear a red hat believe this ain't going to come get them. And everybody else who's sensible, including going back to Rudy Gobert and where we were 6 months ago, how we treated it when people were in white Willy Wonka suits running around Asia back in January and February, picking up bodies, putting them into ambulances and how it's being treated now here, it's the same disease. We just don't have enough masks to go around here. We don't have enough outrage to go around, and we certainly have too much unemployment and too much despair to not try to get the one thing that galvanizes us, sports, back on. Jerry's got to get the Cowboys back out on the field. And I'm telling you, if Jerry's leading us, and Jerry knows, Jerry's an idiot. Jerry's a billionaire who doesn't think this pertains to him. And there's money to be made in them fields. We got to get them out. We got to get the boys out there playing ball. And that's all I'm hearing. I'm not hearing anyone with a science background saying putting men wrestling in mud together is a good idea for our it's not a good idea. I mean, I hate to get existentialist about this, but until someone dies, they're going to do this. And I don't know if anybody's going to die or not. I hope nobody dies. But I know one thing. They're not going to get through this unscathed. They're not going to play 4 months of football under these conditions in this country, in this environment, and get to a Super Bowl in Tampa with integrity. With integrity. They might do it. I mean, this guy gets up every day and leads the country. He doesn't do it with integrity, but he does it. I don't think they're going to do this unscathed. I think they're opening themselves up to shutting down the season, which I guess they would say, well, we tried, right? And that's okay too, but at what cost? At what cost? And that's, I know what the profit line is. I know what you can make, but what's it cost? And that's something I don't know that they're really thinking about. I really don't.
And they need to be thinking about that.
Until one of their wives or their kids winds up in Florida looking for an ICU bed that doesn't exist in 49 hospitals as we speak. But that's where we are.
But at the same time, isn't every
Lamar Jackson's mother gets sick in Florida. She didn't even have a hospital to go to. I keep going to that.
but at the same time, this is what everyone's combating as far as making personal choices and responsibilities and, staying at home as much as you can or staying out of those social settings. So if you are a player that's electing to play, and by and large, it appears that players – to this point, at least, have not opted out. And the union.
There are a lot of people not doing what's in their own best interest right now. There are a lot of people not listening to the good side of the government or doctors. So there are a lot of people choosing to do stupid stuff, unsanctioned, and they're not getting paid $10 million a year to do it, right? I mean, go outside, walk around. You'll find them. I found one at the supermarket the other day.
Right. But, I mean, it comes down to if it is going to be feasible in any way. And look, of course people are going to test positive. I mean, that's going to happen. There's no question about that. If that's truly the standard, then no, they shouldn't play. If the standard should be that no one tests positive, then of course no one should play.
Well, that's the standard that they have set everywhere else in the world, Luke. Fundamentally, the standard is we are going to contain this virus by checking your app, by you checking in, by making sure you're clean, by doing all of this stuff that we have just refused to do. So there is no system set up because we didn't set a system up as a society, which is why we have a plague running wild in our country right now. I mean, that's what Anthony Fauci would say, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not going to dispute that, and I'm not going to sit here and be an expert about it because I'm not. But, if we're talking within the context of what they're trying to do, that's why the testing is paramount. That's why players are pushing for testing every single day. If you can test every single day and pull that off and have an environment where players are COVID-free, then theoretically you can play. But getting back to the point I was making, in the same way that we're all making choices as far as being responsible or not with individuals and their network, their immediate family, that's where it's going to become so important in all these, well, I guess not the bubble sports with NHL, NBA, MLS as much, but for Major League Baseball and for the NFL to pull this off, their families are going to have to be responsible too. And it's going to be a case of, if there's a veteran player that is in his 30s and he has a, teenage son, for example, his teenage son's going to have to be responsible and understand that, hey, what I do is going to impact the rest of my family.
What if his teenage son is immune compromised, there's diabetic, and dad picks it up at the office?
I hear you. I mean, we can keep spinning our wheels about this. You don't think they should play. I certainly have reservations about it.
I'm in the sports business. I mean, I guess I'm glad they played. It's no risk to me. They're not going to let me anywhere near the players. You know why? Because it's a bad idea to let me near the players. You know what I mean? Like, sure. It is. So they're not going to let me near the – they're never going to let us near the players again, by the way, ever. But that's
right.
That's neither here nor there. I have shaken the hand of my last quarterback for years, if not for life, quite frankly. I'm pretty sure of that. I've been around this enough to know that. But all that being said, I will sit here. I will watch. I will opine. I am just – if you're sending me to Vegas right now and saying, are they going to complete this season that they're trying to – in the American way, fight through it, work through it. We're not quitters. I believe me, I'm here working too, right? I mean, sure. I need to work. I need to eat. Farms need to sell chicken. It's chicken palooza. Coal roofies. You still got to have a roof. I get all of that, but do you still need to have a football game or a baseball game? They think they are necessary and mandatory and essential and all of that. And we're going to find out. And we're going to find out whether they can pull it off. I've been around this too much, and they sweat on top of each other and they breathe on top of each other. I will give you that baseball may have some half-assed way to get this done.
Well, it's a distant
And baseball,
sport.
look, these people here, if these people had any pride, like seriously, if they had any pride in this, come on. I mean, they wouldn't field the garbage they have fielded for a quarter of a century primarily while they've made money. So, I mean, if it's about competitive balance, baseball's never really cared all that much about that. It's about making money. But I think baseball, because of it, the way it is, has a better chance to getting to the end. I also think baseball has a better chance of getting to the end and having nobody care in a 60-game season. But I think their thought is, well, if baseball has everybody at 20 and 20, 40 games in, it might really fire things up at the end of September. And if the curve's going the right way, maybe we could get to October 15th or October 20th and play some baseball games. I think the NFL will get to October 20th. You know what I mean? I think the NFL can ramp up and get going. I just think this is too long of a journey for the NFL, for me, and too close of quarters and too much gathering for me. And the pandemic's going the wrong way right now for me. I don't know that I would have said this in June. I don't know that I would have said this had I not gone to North Carolina and seen with my own eyes and my own spirit over the course of a week where there was no pandemic because their idiot Republican governor told them that, or their idiot president told them that, or the idiot television network they told them that they don't need a mask. And I watched it. I witnessed it. I saw it for a week, and it scared the hell out of me. And you know what? 6 weeks later, the entire country is in chaos right now in regard to this virus and upside down, and I am not at all shocked by that because I saw it coming, and I think I think the NFL is really being foolish right now if they think they're going to go play. And I think they would be better served to say, we're going to move everything back 8 weeks, and we're going to come back on September 15th and reevaluate this in the way that all of the world reevaluated this on March 13th. Bars that were opening for St. Patrick's Day with all their money had to reevaluate. Everybody has had to reevaluate this from a financial standpoint and worry more about the life of their wife who's diabetic or their child who may not have the right lungs the rest of his life if he gets it or she gets it. And I just think it's being very, very short-sighted. That's all. I've had death and despair all around me, right? I mean, lost another person I know the other day. I see it, and I just don't want it to be Lamar Jackson's mother. That's all. That's all.
And that's fair. I'm not going to sit here and
or
argue
your
with you
mother
about
for
that.
going out there and high-fiving football players in Owings Mills, which you have no business doing, right? You have no business doing it. You know what? They're not going to let you do it, and you're not going to let you do it. You're not going to go touching Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson's not going to touch you on behalf of you and your mother and your brother and who you live with, because that's the plague. And I think we've gotten sloppy here, Luke. I think we've really gotten sloppy, and I think for the NFL to go out and say it's okay for us, that's sloppy. That's just sloppy.
But that's why they're controlling the environment, though. I mean, if it's theoretically going to work, that's why they're keeping everyone but the players and coaches away from that part of the
John Harbaugh
building.
looked at the rules 4 weeks ago and threw them up in the air and said, you got to be kidding me. That's what they're all going to do. That's what they're all going to do.
Well,
in the same way the bars around here that said, we're going to open and we're going to have all the stringent treatment. Yeah, and then Louis went and hugged his girlfriend, or you know what I mean? And then he came back to the bar the next night, and the ecosystem people are in, and my friends are shutting their bars. Franco's in Catonsville, shut. Chaucer in Highland, my friend Brian, shut. The Lee's half, like all the way around, I'm seeing it. This is in my neighborhood, and we don't even have like an outbreak here. Maryland's like 36th or something right now. We're not Texas or Florida where all these guys are coming from. It's a mistake, Luke. It's a mistake, and I know the animated part of me and the nasty Nestor today, it's plague, dude, and this is a mistake. And at whatever point they'll pull the plug on this or won't, or whatever tragedies, the assistant to the assistant defensive coordinator died for the Browns. Oh, well, it's COVID. Let's open the bar this weekend. That's the way this thing's getting treated right now. And that's the scariest part of all of it. That's the disgusting part of the leadership, is that, our friends that died last week, we just, they would have died anyway. Tough thing. The virus got them. The flu got them. No, I'm not buying it. I'm angry about this, and I think the NFL is setting a tone that's dangerous. That's all. For them, and for pretty much everybody else, because this back to usual, it's not working. It's just not working.
Is anyone saying it's back to usual, though? I mean, that's the players' message on Sunday, and that's why they're talking about this now, and that's why to your point that you made a couple minutes ago.
Well, good. I'm glad some of the players are taking my side and saying this might not be a good idea. Let's think about this, because Donald Trump says we got to get back to work and the schools are open. This idiot bim Nancy DeVos, who you should be pretty angry at, because you went down a whole pipeline of life to be an educator, to see fake educators and fake scientists and fake leaders. I've had enough of it. I don't need to see fake football that they're going to start a season they're not going to finish. That's all.
Fair enough. We'll see. I'm not trying to play the white coat here and just disagree with you on everything, because I don't disagree with you on everything. But that's why.
What do you think? Do you think they're going to? We're all crystal balling here, and I get that they're trying to do this.
The reality is, you don't know. I don't know. Anyone who says they know is full of it, and that includes, even the medical expert opinions have evolved over time.
Counting on
I'm just saying.
You and I sitting in Tampa, broadcasting from the convention center.
Well, we're not going to be doing that. That part of it is obvious. The media part, and that's the only way they have a chance to pull this off, is if you restrict that environment as much as possible. You mentioned Dr. Fauci. He talked about the idea of a bubble. That's why the MLB, why Major League Baseball and why the NFL inherently is at a disadvantage compared to the NBA and the NHL, who are essentially just playing a playoff schedule in a bubble. That NBA is playing a handful of games and they're going into the playoffs, and NHL is going right into the playoffs. And so, yeah, it is going to be challenging. There's no question about that. But that's why the testing and the protocols that they have to follow, we'll see if it works out. If it's followed to a T, I give them some percentage chance of doing it. If they're not going to follow it and coaches are going to be flippant, and, not to pick on John Harbaugh, but the comments he made a month ago, if that's still his opinion now, if that's still coach's opinion now, then yeah, it probably will fail. But is there somewhere between pulling off, is there somewhere between a 100% normal season without a hitch and being shut down and not doing it at all? There's going to have to be, because it's going to be somewhere in that range if it's going to happen. Or we'll just be talking about this thing being shut down in late September, and there won't be a football season. So I do think the scenario you presented, though, and as much as the players right now are pushing back on the league bristling at the acclimation period, having the players come in, work on strength and conditioning, gradually ramp up. And part of that process is also to get used to protocols and get used to distancing. The Orioles have talked about this, some of the players, Brandon Hyde, how the first few days it was much more, hey, guys, getting too close, those types of things. As you're back in that environment and you see what the, quote, new normal is, guys adapt to it a little bit more. Can they have that ramp up period where they, as much as they can to mitigate, if they do that part successfully, do they have a puncher's chance? Maybe. So, there's a lot to this. There's no question about it. And, to your point, as far as families and people that are in these players' networks, their responsibility is going to be to restrict their social network as much as possible. And it might mean their wives and their children are staying home almost exclusively, other than, essential reasons. So, there's a lot to it, and players are going to test positive. Players have tested positive in Major League Baseball since they've been back. But, you do look at the testing, the most recent testing pool that they had. It was encouraging. It was actually, I think the less than 1% positive rate out of the 10,000 some samples they did of players, coaches, team personnel, et cetera. So, if baseball can do something like that, do I think football has some chance of being able to do that? We'll see. But to your point, it is many more players involved. And certainly the sport itself does not lend itself to distancing nearly as well as Major League Baseball, where outfielders and infielders are spread out, and really the only close contact setting is umpire, catcher, batter on a regular basis. So,
and it's outside too.
We will see. Sure. So, I mean, again, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to contrast you and say that I'm bubbling with optimism about this. I'm not, but there are varying degrees of how this could go, and are there some where it can be pulled off, and there can be some semblance of a season that it's going to have an asterisk in the same way we've talked about this with baseball. The fact that there aren't any fans in the stands right away makes it, because we're not talking about third down and crowd noise and pre-snap penalties, right? I mean, that right there inherently.
I know what silent football sounds like. I've been to the preseason.
Exactly. But I want to be clear, and for anyone watching us or listening to us right now, I echo many of the same concerns that you have. But that's why it's so important to agree on testing and safety protocol and what happens when a player tests positive and what does that mean for close contacts. And that's why it's so important. And if they need to push back players reporting to iron this out for a couple more weeks and to have a slower acclimation period and ramp up period, then great. And if that means the season has to start the third week of September compared to the second, then fine.
Oh, and by the way, if we have the pandemic under control in this country because we start to test and trace, which we're never going to do under this awful leadership, then I would say, good, let's go do that. That's a September issue for me to say 8 weeks from now, the virus could look different. 8 weeks ago, the virus looked different in Maryland. Then we started running around and high-fiving each other and hugging each other and running off to the beach and jumping in the pool and having barbecues. And now we have a problem here again. So this is really about the country, right? It's really about everybody's safety, as it was with Rudy Gobert. So I keep going back to what were our thoughts and what was our best information and our best advice then. It's still the best information now, even if you don't want it to be, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's making you broke, all of that. It's the virus doesn't care. And last thing for you before I let you go, the experience of going to Camden Yards, I haven't asked you about it. So I just want 2 minutes on showing up at the ballpark and watching BP for no one.
It's definitely different. You pull into Lot A as a reporter, and there are two different entrances now. They have Lot A essentially split into the different tiers. The higher tier, the player entrance and team personnel, et cetera. And then they have a separate entrance for media and I assume stadium personnel.
You literally don't touch anybody, right? Literally?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, so you
and park. It's empty, right? It's an empty building, literally.
Yeah, I mean, there's some security guards and some stadium personnel, but not much. I mean, it's
you walk by less people than you do walking down the street, literally.
Yeah, right? I mean, the number of non-team affiliated personnel in the stadium, people in the stadium, 20 maybe, something like that. I mean, it's not many. But you go to a tent, you pick up your credential, you go to another tent, you have one of the scan things that you take a picture with your phone, and you have the symptoms checklist. You go through, it'll say, have you had any of these symptoms over the last 24 to 48, might be 72, whatever it is, because some of them are different questions as far as timeline. You go through and, the typical COVID symptoms that we've all heard about, you go through. It asks if you say yes to any of those. Can you explain? Like, for example, if you have seasonal allergies, you need to explain that, why you have a runny nose right now. So you go through, fill those out. Then at that point, you get to a temperature check. Someone takes the scanning thing, scans your forehead. If your temperature is in line, then okay, you're approved to go in. You get a little message on your phone that says, it looks like you're healthy enough to enter Camden Yards. And you go in. Now, they open the gate at a very specific time. It's not come and go as you please. Like, for example, me being someone who covers the Ravens as well, I wouldn't always show up at 3:10 for a 7:05 game because I'd be in Owings Mills. So I might show up at 5 o'clock. I might show up first pitch because it's been a later day in Owings Mills. I don't have that same kind of liberty anymore. You have to go in at a specific time. And the way it looks like it's going to work for a typical 7:05 game or 7:35, whatever the start time will be, is you'll have a 3 to 5 p.m. window to do all those steps that I just mentioned. If you're approved to go in, the gate opens at a certain time. If it's not that time yet, you wait outside. I think it's gate D. It's right next to Home Plate Plaza. So they open the gate. There's a fenced-in kind of aisleway for you to go directly to the steps to go up to the press box. And there are assigned seating in the press box. You're instructed, hey, you can't go and just mingle with
no talking.
Your buddy from, AP or BAL, whatever, that whole thing.
Yeah, Zoom.
So you have that. No meal is served. There's no media dining. They do have a cooler for bottled water at least.
You stop by,
nice.
I'll get you some peanut butter and jelly. I got some leftover Pizza John's. I'll send you over with
I'll have to bring my hot dogs, because how can I not have a hot dog at the ballpark? That's just strange. But that's the process. That same process under normal circumstances. They check your bag, of course. They scan your credential. They still look at your bag, but guess what? You have to open everything up because they're just looking inside it. So it's definitely different. I'm not saying this to complain. Going back to the point we were making before, if this is all going to be pulled off, this is the reality for the time being. So if everyone buys into that, to bring it back to the NFL discussion, if everyone can buy into what needs to be different, that's when you have a chance to pull it off. Not 100% chance, but a chance. But, in the same way that if I don't abide by some of the things I just mentioned, or I don't wear a mask into the ballpark, well, they're not going to let me in, and I can't cover the team then. So, that's just where we are right now.
Well, I hope you haven't given up too many of your personal freedoms, Luke. So
it's strange.
Hey, before they throw us off of Zoom, appreciate you. Baltimore Luke can be found out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Everywhere we are, you are. WNST.net, AM 1570, and Baltimore Positive. We're getting through COVID together.